I'm Anne-Marie Mitroff, River Program Director for Groundwork USA, and my colleague Deanna Toledo from River Network is also in the room. We're your coordinators for the Urban Waters Learning Network. The network purpose simply is to really help you with your jobs by providing forums for networking and ways of communicating and sharing what works and what doesn't. So ultimately, our urban waters are in better shape, and the people who live and work around them benefit in multiple ways. Today's format will be to hear from 3 of your peers, about 10 minutes each, followed by questions for each, and then we want to open up the call for you to share some of your experiences. What are you doing on this front? What are your challenges? How have you found things helpful? So let's go to it. First up is Donny Roush, Senior Program Manager for EarthForce in Denver. Donnie?
Thanks. And
Ryan, if you would load up the Roush.
There we go.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Donnie talking to you from Denver, Colorado. I work for EarthForce, which is a nonprofit that works on youth engagement in their communities, and that's primarily through civic action projects that lead to environmental improvements right where the students live. Our programs are strongest when we work in a formal education setting. So a lot of my work takes place in schools that are partners and engage an entire school district. That makes it even better. The project here in Denver we're going to talk about goes by the name of KickNet, and that stands for Keep It Clean Neighborhood Environmental Trios. And where this work grew out of, since 2007, EarthForce has held a contract with the city of Denver to do its stormwater education and outreach as required in the city's MS4 permit, so Clean Water Act required components of the stormwater program. And starting in about 2010, the city's clean water manager challenged EarthForce to reimagine what that could look like so that we could mutually benefit and meet the goals of Public Works, the City Parks and Recreation Department, and the public schools in the city. So we started working on conceiving of what that would look like, how we could meet science education and other standards that are out there for the schools, how we can meet the city's permit requirements, and how the strategic plan goals around stewardship for the Parks and Rec Department could be met. We were fortunate to receive one of the first round of Urban Waters small grants through EPA, and we're in the last 6 months of that 2-year pilot supported by EPA, and Public Works here in Denver is matching that dollar for dollar. And then the work is also supported by a Toyota Together Green Fellowship that I have through National Audubon Society. So I'm going to assume this is a pretty water-savvy group, so you've probably mostly experienced or used KickNets either in your work or perhaps in an educational setting. I consider a KickNet a gateway device for really hooking kids in. It excites everybody the first time they get to experience taking a sample with KickNet and seeing what's right there in the streams and waters. So we borrowed the name KickNet, created an acronym around it that actually describes what we're working toward here in Denver. So we did a GIS analysis of the city and found places where there's a public school, a park, preferably with a recreation center, and some form of surface water. They're all in close proximity with each other, and brought those trios together, invited them to be part of the project and work with us to develop this program. So the shot on the screen is actually one of the schools where we work. It's a middle school setting that is the city's designated newcomers school. So there's 1,000 children, mostly recent immigrants to the United States from all over the world that work there. And right out the front of their building is Cherry Creek, one of the tributaries in Denver, and right across the pedestrian bridge is a park with a rec center. That triangle shows up again in our conceptual framework. So this model that we've been working on delivers content for the public schools, a process that leads to action for Parks and Recreation and action projects that we can say are helping stormwater and building awareness, changing behaviors for the wastewater division of Public Works. And I don't know most of you, but I really like the term wastewater, and I try not to use it. I usually just refer to the agency we work with as Public Works and their stormwater program. EarthForce's instructional approach works probably strongest in science education settings, but can be used across disciplines in an integrated way. We work with groups of students that start with an inventory in their neighborhoods, that they notice strengths and issues in the environment that's immediately around them, lead them through a process of selecting an issue, researching that issue, looking at strategies for addressing the issue, taking one of those strategies and designing a project around it. As I mentioned, 2-year pilot that we have here in Denver, and the tracks of work have been around partnership development, so making sure that our agency partners are getting what they need out of this, that we're meeting their needs, helping them work together, but that most of the work is being done by their contractor, EarthForce. We've been developing an activity guide as well as a toolkit that's gone into all the schools, and then we have evaluation in place. Quantitative pieces are post surveys, an educator survey, and then the qualitative piece actually is coming from National Audubon, and that's a most significant change storytelling tool that will be talking with participants in the spring about their experiences.
All the background do we have? Can we get some muting on?
Have just come in to place. Most states are looking at those, and about half a dozen states formally adopted them, and at least another dozen states are in process of getting those in place. You may have also heard of Common Core. That's a set of environmental, English language arts standards and mathematics standards. We're working to make our curriculum match up and align with several of the standards that are in those. Some of the big shifts, Next Gen Science Standards talks about students actually practicing science and engineering. Engineering's right up there with science on equal footing. And the informational text, meaning that nonfiction is meant to be at least 50% of what students read from kindergarten on up. We can really help with that as students look at information about the city around them. And what we think we're building is an integrated instructional sequence, and that's the term used by the primary author of the Next Gen Standards in describing what he sees as the curricular needs. So with Urban Waters, we feel like we're meeting the priorities in that funding, and we're looking at scale-up across the country for KickNet. We have reached the partnership level of submitting proposals with 3 other areas in the country and have discussions with about half a dozen other places throughout the country. If it's something that you have worked with stormwater, either the education and outreach components or in an MS4 setting and would like to talk more, I'd love to continue the conversation. That's what I have. Thanks.
Great. Questions for Donnie?
I actually was interested in hearing a little bit more about the most significant change tool that you were talking about.
Yeah, so it's they call it a technique, and it's a semi-structured interview setting where you elicit stories about the project from participants. So we'll be doing that with students, educators, and other partners. I don't have the instrument in hand yet from National Audubon, but I've seen it, so I know it exists. And we'll probably be doing, if I had to guess, probably 15 to 20 of those interviews, and then looking for themes that come out of those, as well as it helps us tell our story when we collect those stories in a systematic way.
When people ask questions, just state your name so we know who you are, that would be great, and maybe where you're from, that would be terrific.
That was Charlene from Webster, Texas. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Other questions for Donnie? Well, this is Anne Marie, and I have a question. Donnie, in terms of sort of timing for some of this storytelling, because that's of course what pulls everybody's heartstrings. When do you see that up and running?
Yeah, we. So I know Son's on the call, and Son, I know exactly when I owe you a final report. It's in September. So between now and September, we need to be collecting both the quantitative and qualitative data to complete the pilot evaluation and do the analysis and reporting on that. So expect to have that. I hope to have some things I'll be sharing about KickNet at River Rally, and I hope to have some of the preliminary numbers and stories to share there.
Anne Marie again. Some of the you were talking about the curriculum, but also the activities that you do. You want to just describe a couple of those, just so that we get a sense for them?
Sure. So for an activity for younger students that's in the activity set in the guide is Design a Storm Drain Challenge. So we show students storm drains around their school campus, and then we have some large PVC pipe that's been put together so that there's a top and it drains down into a bottom. Usually you use coffee grounds and get some water full of coffee and grounds, and then the students have a variety of materials that they're challenged to make a filter with that will help clean the water. And so it's a problem-solving approach, it's working together in teams, and then it's ways of measuring how they're taking things out of the water and how many trials it takes to get to a solution.
Yeah.
Another activity is a stormwater audit that we do. So if anybody's done stormwater education work, you know about the tagging of inlets that is done in most places. And we'll do a systematic search around the neighborhood and see where the badges are in place and where they need to be put into place. But that, in being a pretty standard activity, we try to raise it up into next-gen science by being systematic about it so that they're gathering data. They're doing some analysis of the data with the numbers, locations, and then a mapping or a graphic representation of what they found in their neighborhood with the storm drains.
Terrific. Okay, let's move on. The second presentation is I'm sorry? Go ahead.
Sorry, this is Ryan. There is a question in the chat.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Can you read it there, Donnie?
Yes, I can. So Alma's asking how the coordinating and working out with the schools and partners goes, and then challenges that have come up. The coordinating goes day by day because we're pulling this together, and I'm the primary point of contact between both the agencies and the 10 schools that we have involved. I do anything from quickly going to my nearest Home Depot and picking up some dowel rods that somebody needed for a project last week, to presenting to the science coordinators in the school district headquarters just to share with what we're developing and to hear from them how they're addressing next generation science standards. The challenges, what we've seen here in Denver is that the strength of the partnership with Parks and Recreation is probably the weakest that we have in that triangle setup. My most contact with Parks and Rec has been with two groups, the park rangers, which are law enforcement folks that also have some community education that they try to do, and working with them just to know the parks where projects are taking place with students, and trying to do some creative scheduling with them so that when they're making their round, they work in districts and ride bikes between the parks information officers, and just sharing the numbers, the stories that come out of projects that are taking place in parks, so that they can share that both within the city government, but also with the citizens here in Denver. Mm-hmm. And Alma, one of the places that I'm having some discussions, just so that you're aware of it, is Kansas City, Kansas.
Great. Anything else there? How long does it take to get it worked into the curriculum?
You know, we try to meet the schools where they are. So some schools have an existing water-focused unit, and we're able to lay what we're doing on top of that and make a pretty strong laminate. Others is, this is fairly new. I actually am working with a couple of schools that this is their first year in existence. So Denver has a pretty strong autonomous school movement. So we have of the just under 150 schools in the city, more than 50 of those are charter schools or innovation schools or magnet schools. And about half of the schools that I'm currently working with fit into that category. So that's really helping them from the ground up, trying to put units in place that will get some legs underneath them, and the teachers will be able to use for years to come.
Terrific.
Thanks,
okay,
everyone.
Let's move on to Charlene. Ryan, can you get her presentation up?
All right. Should I begin?
Sure.
Okay. Hi, I'm Charlene Bohanon with Galveston Bay Foundation. I'm going to kind of give you an overview of our big picture project with Urban Waters, and then focus on one component of it, which is our AquaKids family program. So first of all, just to give you a little background, our foundation's mission is to preserve, protect, and enhance Galveston Bay and its tributaries, and we do have several different teams that work on different types of projects. I belong on the advocacy team, and I specifically focus on water quality, but we do have several other program areas that cover different types of projects. We have, like everybody, has a unique story about our bay and what it looks like to be on Galveston Bay. It's both a challenge and a strength, I guess, because it gives you diverse audiences built right in. We have a lot of industry here with the petrochemical and oil and gas, as well as shipping. We also have a lot of tourism. The bottom left picture is Galveston Island, highly developed there. We have a huge recreational boating community. It's the third largest privately owned area of marinas in the U.S. And then, of course, we do have some of our treasured, conserved wetlands and more natural-looking areas. The watershed itself extends all the way up to north of Dallas-Fort Worth, and is about 27,000 square miles. And the bay itself is 660 square miles with 1,500 miles of shoreline. So that's my project area around the entire Galveston Bay area. However, I do focus on the western side because that is the more urban, developed side of our bay. And then the project that I have with through the EPA Urban Waters grant, when I started here, we didn't have very many programs focused on water quality outreach. We were coordinating an implementation plan for reducing bacteria, and we had a boater waste education campaign that was very much marketing focused. So my goal was to try to reach a lot of different audiences. It was hard to connect with a lot of people on that level. So we developed this outreach model called Clean Water Partnerships, and it was a way for us to really dig into the community, and it's focused on creating partners in which we can take action with them. And so you can see kind of on our map where the stars are. Those are our main partners that we have right now ranges from marinas to universities to a high school to municipalities. And our goal was to try to diversify our main partners so that we could create programs that would fit their type of audiences and their focuses in terms of water quality and reducing bacteria into the bay. So we build those relationships and use them as a platform for delivering programs. One of the reasons we ended up having to do that is because we, as Galveston Bay Foundation, our office is in a strip center, and we don't really have very many water access. We don't have water access to, and we don't have a beautiful setting to hold these programs in, or really a setting at all. So creating these partnerships gave us a way to be on the bay with our water quality programs. And then I'll go on to kind of talk about we developed a whole menu of different types of programs that we could offer since we did know we would have a diverse audience. We came up with several different types of workshops and classes. As you can see on the slide, we have a rain barrel workshop, which has been wonderful, and the AquaKids program, which I'll talk about more. We developed a Back the Bay tour, which is an all-day watershed tour, just one component of the watershed, making several stops, bringing kids out a lot around the bay that normally wouldn't really get out there and see the different types of development that we have and the human impacts, doing a watershed survey and some water quality testing, and doing also a classroom. The classroom one actually comes first, which is our Watershed 101 class, and getting them to understand the concepts before they go on the Back the Bay tour. We also have various campaigns that target some of our main issues that are focused on, that tie right back into our implementation plan for reducing bacteria. So we're actually working to adopt a Cease the Grease campaign right now based off of a very successful campaign that the City of Dallas Water Utilities developed. They have been working with us on adopting that, and we're excited about that program. And then our boater waste education campaign, Pump Don't Dump, is something that has been expanding to be more on the ground. And AquaKids is actually a component of that, which didn't exist before, to address boat sewage discharges. And then we have a pet waste campaign like everyone else does, but we called it Bag It for Your Bay. And we coined that term off of another group that uses Bag It for Your Bayou. And just developed a pledge and a system which different entities could adopt in getting the pet waste outreach out there. And then we have also volunteer opportunities. It looks like one of my little pictures magically disappeared from the top left. Sorry about that. But we have a water monitoring team that has expanded in extreme ways since getting this grant. We have a college research experience, which is a summer internship where they actually conduct a water quality study in marinas, and Storm Drain Stewards program, which is connecting with people of all ages to mark stormwater inlets and deliver overall watershed education and non-point source pollution. So that's kind of the big picture of the program. I'll focus a little bit more now on the AquaKids component. And this is, since we developed all of those programs, aside from the boater waste program, in the duration of this grant, we've done a lot of work on refining how we connect with people, how we connect with partners, and then actually physically developing and launching these programs. And so our next step is to go out and deliver them a lot more frequently and to start getting even more data in to measure how they're working. So any input you guys have is wonderful. We just hired a part-time outreach person to help us get out there and do this more. So the goals of the AquaKids program is to engage future boaters and adults as well. That's our first target. We realize that the adults, they come, when we get them in the same room with the kids, we can do a lot of fun things, and they're going to take away just as much information as the kids, and they won't be as inhibited to be silly and talk about gross things like poop. So it's one of the ways that we are getting more bang for our buck by making it a family program. We also wanted to connect with marinas on a new level because, up until this point, the boater waste issue has been really dealing with advocating for increasing the number of pump-out stations and trying to work towards getting a no-discharge zone and increasing enforcement. So it's really not on that much of a fun level. So we wanted to have a way to connect with marinas in a more fun way. We also wanted to get more access to the water and have ways to bring people to the water. So while this is, right now we have a built-in audience with the marina tenants and through the various marina associations and the cruising associations, but eventually we would like to see, and a lot of the marinas are open to bringing outside groups. So for example, the marina we would partner with, we have a burn hospital that's on the island on Galveston, and people come from all over to go to this burn hospital. And you know, it's a way to serve a diverse community that would not normally connect with Galveston Bay, but does spend a lot of time there. So you know, this program will grow and expand our audiences as we establish these relationships. And then we answer 3 main questions through the AquaKids program, and we do that through 3 different stations. And currently we have certain activities that we've done, but we intend to expand and to add different activities so that we can continue to have repeat families come back. So I'll kind of go through what these activities were that we did during the first program. So the first question we focus on is, where does pollution come from? We use the EnviroScape model, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with, talking about point and non-point source pollution. The one thing that we added to it, actually it was an idea that came to us from another partner, which you guys might be interested in. Instead of just using the spray bottles to make it rain or pouring water over it, we actually just built a very simple PVC pipe frame that stands up over top of it and has a little inlet at the top, and you pour a pitcher of water in it, and it rains at the top of the watershed, and it all flows down. So that was super cheap, super easy. It fits inside the carrying case for the EnviroScape, and the kids and the adults all love it when it rains like that. They get excited. So that's just one little add-on that you could do really cheaply. We also have this little toilet toss that we created we use it for this program, but also for booth activities. It's really funny to watch people walk by our booth and just see a toilet seat sitting in the walkway. But the kids like it. It helps us to engage and start conversations about where does your waste go after it goes in the toilet. And then we can talk about various things, whether it be septic systems or wastewater treatment plants or pump-out stations. So depending on the audience, that can be a good conversation starter, even for the adults when they're standing there wondering. It was really cheap. I got a toilet seat and I glued it to that little PVC pipe random shaped thing. I just walk around Home Depot to ask for these different parts and how I can make it work. And stole my husband's mismatched brown socks and filled them with beans, and he sutured them for me. He's a surgery resident, so it worked out well. And then the next question we answer is, how does nature help clean up our pollution? And we focus bringing in one of our other programs, which we have an oyster shell recycling and reef restoration program. And so they have these oyster bags that hang over piers to let the oyster spat eventually settle, the larva stage settle on the bag of shells. And then, of course, that creates a huge microcosm, a little ecosystem in a bag. And so this marina happens to do that. So we just pulled the bags up, put them in a tub, and aerated it and created a little bingo game out of it, and talked about how the oysters are very important in filtering out the water. And also, we are able to pull in the public health then and just talk about people that like to eat oysters. They do concentrate whatever it is that they suck out of the water, and so we do have a concern with certain areas of Galveston Bay being closed for oyster harvesting due to the bacteria issues. So we're able to connect it back to the why is it important, as well as how is nature helping us. And then I'm not sure how I'm doing on time, so I'm sorry if I'm skipping over something. Feel free to ask questions. But I want to get to the very end. So how can we help? That's another station we set up, which had several activities. We pulled in multiple of our campaigns into this one station, and we talked about Cease the Grease and showed them, what happens when you'd pour grease down the sink and it clogs and causes sanitary sewer overflows. And then they got to see a gross jar full of household cooking grease and fat, and then had them make these grease monster jars, which is the picture you see in the bottom right-hand corner. That's the final product of a couple of the students. So just have a bunch of recycled jars that my coworkers all brought in, and then gave them a bunch of random art supplies that they could decorate their own grease monster jar. The grease monster comes into one of the marketing creative components of the campaign, so it ties into the campaign that we will be launching soon. And then we have a Poop and Pipes life-size board game that we created, and I will show you the schematic of it, but overall the main goal is for them to understand, again, where does your waste go after it leaves your house, and where do we want it to go, and or what are some problems that could prevent it from getting treatment before it goes into the bay. So we pull in our pump, don't dump, the cease the grease, and bag it for your bay all into that game. The kids themselves, I'll go to the next slide. This is kind of a drawing of how we set it up and the materials that we have for it. So you can kind of read through that. But we set up the board game, and the kids themselves are the dirty water, and they just wear these little streamers on their wrist. We're going to see if we can, up the costume a little bit, but that was a cheap way with some hair bands and some cut pieces of brown fabric. And then they roll a large foam die that we bought on Amazon, and they go different spaces through the hula hoops. And when they get to a sign, they have to follow the instructions on the sign, which we talk about beforehand. I'm sorry, I should have put this in a little different order. Beforehand, here we go. We talk about where does it go. We show them the visual. We have two different systems, either wastewater or stormwater, and we then bring it back to them to where they can actually see the sewer, the manhole covers, or a storm drain. And if at the site, if there's something nearby that we can show them instead of just this picture, we'll take them over to show them the actual inlet. And that is all I have right now. I'm happy to share any more information that you want in detail. Just let me know.
Terrific. Okay, let's go for at least 5 minutes of questions. I think we have that time.
Yeah. Why not? I put on mute here.
Anybody with questions for Charlene?
Charlene, this is Donnie. I'm wondering about the point, non-point source division that has been taught for seeming ever. I've sort of shied away from that in my work with stormwater, and I'm wondering what your take on that is.
Yes, it's definitely, it's confusing for a lot of people, and maybe not necessary to even bring up to your general audience. We actually, in the program itself, don't bring up that term. However, I know that it is still very common practice to teach in a school setting. I know our aquatic science students, they learn the difference between the two types of pollution. But for this program, we don't mention that. We just kind of talk big picture, like what are the different sources. So yeah, I agree. That's a very, it can be a gray line, depending on with the stormwater, because you have all the non-point sources going into the technical point source. So yeah, I agree. That's very confusing.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
There's a question from Tamara. What age groups are you targeting with your program, and do you think you could scale it up to high school?
Yes, thank you. I didn't mention that. Our target is 1st through 5th graders, and we have the wider age range because their parents are with them and are able to assist with some of the activities. But I definitely think that it could be scaled up. I would have to think about it, and work with the teachers, but I think it's something that could definitely be scaled up. Just the conversations that you would have would be richer. I know even high school students like to do crafty type things, and if you can get them over their self-consciousness, they like to be silly too.
Did you spend, this is Anne Marie again, did you spend some time with, did kids help you do this? Did you guys all sit in a group and decide you wanted a day off and figured out a lot of these games, or how did you pull these together?
In our office, we were just throwing around ideas, basically, and our education team that we have here, they specifically work with school students on a regular basis, where I focus a lot. I do work with schools, but I work more with just general public, wide age ranges of kids and adults. So we did come up with those just in our office, just throwing around ideas and trying to think outside the box.
All right, anybody else? Okay, let's go to presentation 3. This would be Tamara, and Ryan, if you can put that up.
Hi there, this is Tamara. You hear me?
Yeah.
All right,
Yep.
great. Let's see. So the program that I wrote a grant to the EPA for the Urban Water Small Grant Program. I referred to it as one door at a time, and the idea was to do on-the-ground research, on-the-ground outreach to the community in a specific watershed. Sorry, my timer went off here. I was supposed to start it instead of stop it. So there are basically 3 partners to the grant. The California Coastal Commission is a state agency that regulates development along the coast of California. And so we're not particularly an outreach organization. We're a land use planning agency. We develop permits for development along the coast. And we partnered for this project with the city of Watsonville. Their sort of parks, community services, public works, wastewater treatment, water supply treatment, they're all kind of work together. So we're working with them. And the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, it has a water quality protection program, and the idea actually sparked at one of their meetings. And then we have been working with a nonprofit in the area called Watsonville Wetlands Watch, which I'm going to talk a little bit about at the end. They have a facility at the Pajaro Valley High School called the Wetlands Education Resource Center. We call it the WERC, W-E-R-C. And they have a ROP program there, which is a occupational facilitating program for high school kids. So just to put the city and the watershed in context, I put together a couple of maps here. So Watsonville is about 90 miles south of the city of San Francisco on the California coast. It is it's on the northern half of the Monterey Bay, and the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary is all of the ocean that you see out from San Francisco south down to the San Luis Obispo County line. So about equidistant as you see north for San Francisco down to the south. The watershed, looking at the map that I provided on the left, is a graphical representation of the Watsonville sloughs. And so you can see it's a multi-fingered slough that comes down and actually discharges. The little spur that you see is just the mouth of the Pajaro River at the bottom of that green and white graphic there. And so just about not quite even a quarter mile up from the mouth of the Pajaro River, from the confluence with the ocean, is where the Watsonville Slough system discharges into the Pacific Ocean. And then in the Google Earth image that I provided, you can see that the upper slough system is completely urbanized, just right up to the edge. And then there's a line right through the middle. That's actually Highway 1, so that's a major highway in this region. And you can see that the entire city and all of the area which is actually the west of Highway 1, is really dominated by agriculture. And then because I am going to talk a little bit about Pajaro Valley High School, I did identify that on the map. So you can see that Pajaro Valley High School is a little special. We allowed, that jurisdiction is in the coastal zone, and we allowed that high school project to be built in ag land, in open space, in this Watsonville Sloughs wetland, in order to do that, we conditioned the project to have specific wetland education curriculums. So that happened a number of years ago, probably close to 20 years ago. Just a little bit of history on the city of Watsonville. It's an old city for the California coast. I know in the East Coast there's many older cities, but founded in 1868, is right on the border of the Monterey and Santa Cruz County lines, and it's predominantly an agricultural community. It was known for years as it's all apple country, and then it has transitioned to row crops. In the modern day, there's a lot of lettuce and leafy greens, and it's really known for its strawberries and caneberries. So if you ever see, no matter where you are in the United States, you pick up a package of strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, it says Driscoll's. It's one of our largest fruit producers in the Watsonville area. So all Driscoll's berries are coming from the Watsonville area. And the Watsonville Sloughs is a great and diverse habitat, a very nice large wetland system for wildlife. So the basic background is that there are a lot of agricultural workers that have come into this community over the last 100 years that leaves Watsonville with about an 80% Hispanic population, the majority of which do not have a high school do not have a high school diploma or any kind of upper education. There's only about 10% of Watsonville's population has a higher degree. So I wasn't able to find specific statistics. I was kind of hunting down yesterday looking for specifics on agricultural workers. There's some jobs numbers, but they're all traditional jobs. And I think that it's clear. I couldn't find a number, but I'm confident that more than 50% of the population works in or around agriculture. So either working directly in the fields, working in packing, working in transportation. And then at the bottom here, I just put there, it's a kind of a six-fingered slough. I think of it as a five-finger slough. One of them is really close to one another. And they all come down from the side, as you saw in that picture, and discharge into Watsonville. And then Watsonville is now, because of agriculture, I'm going to actually go back a slide. You can see this long, narrow run that that moves down to the Pajaro River. That is ag fields on all sides. So it's really kind of been channelized. Watsonville Slough, you can see the upper sloughs are a little bit more open. So all that to say is that the area is heavily developed in the upper slough system, completely surrounded by urbanization, and in the lower slough system, completely surrounded by agricultural fields. So there is a lot of impacts to the watershed associated with those land uses. The watershed is listed for pathogens and pesticides predominantly from the agricultural environment, although the agricultural environment is both upstream of this, and there are places we have discovered that where it actually runs under the city, discharging into the slough in the urban environment. So you have that mixed land use causing water quality pollution and impacts throughout the whole system. So that's the background. The grant that I wrote sparked out of a water quality protection program meeting for the sanctuary. I sit on their steering committee, and we were talking about having periodically the program has a conference or a symposium or a forum. We kind of call it different things different times. And a number of us were talking about how we're always bringing people together that do water quality work and do water quality monitoring, and we tell each other what we're doing, and how we could expand that program to communicate more to the public and do more direct outreach to the residents in the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary. And I happen to have come across this grant within the same week, and knowing I have a partnership with the city of Watsonville and working closely with them, targeted that particular watershed to use the Urban Waters Funds. So we have just 4 goals and kind of 4 steps of the grant. The goal to reduce pollutants entering the system, and really the first bullet there, develop general awareness and a sense of ownership of the watershed, is really important. The city of Watsonville and their Parks and Rec department has really worked hard in the last couple of decades to bring trails and a nature center and do restoration, trash removal, non-native invasive removal. So it's really just the goal of this grant is really just to provide some opportunities to this community that they wouldn't normally have. And I'm going to explain that in the next slide, but to bring some easy behavior changes. And so we're going to do that through a series of resource fairs where in our community we have, that's the greater community of Santa Cruz County and the Monterey County, which are kind of sister counties in the Monterey Bay. We have all kinds of programs that happen that are outreach to landowners and folks who have a little bit of money, and there's match programs to do LID implementation, so we can come in and work with this organization and they'll help you put in a rain garden, work with that organization and they'll help you do something else. But you really have to seek those resources out. And so given the nature of the population in Watsonville, we wanted to bring those resources in to the community and bring it to sort of their neighborhood and their doorstep, so to speak, as opposed to expecting lower income, non-English speaking people to know that they need to go to the Resource Conservation District and they could get support. So that was kind of the goal behind a series of resource fairs that we're going to do. And we've actually done the first one, and they're going to basically target residential, both renter and homeowner. So looking at low-cost water quality and water conservation practices, really trying to target anybody who lives adjacent to and can see and interacts with the Watsonville sluice system. One of the things that we're going to have to do is provide bilingual information because, again, most of these organizations speak to generally the white community in the well-to-do neighborhoods, and so it's not really an issue for them. So we're trying to expand their audience, and a component of this project is to just take people's already existing programs, existing materials, and do a little bit of translation, at least for the outreach elements of those programs. And then I have, through looking for ways to do the bilingual translation in an inexpensive, cost-effective way, I started working with the Pajaro Valley High School students, and that has become a really important part of the grant. And the goal of that component is both to empower the students to be the leaders in their next community, and then to actually get them to do some of the Spanish translation. There's a series of steps that we're doing. We had them research topics, make some fact sheets, and then they're going to start doing Spanish translation on the fact sheets they made, and then we're going to actually have them do some translation of some other documents. And so we're working with predominantly Hispanic population in the school as well. So we have that resource right there. And I think we're going to use some of the EPA translation facilities to check that and verify that we're doing our translations correctly. Another goal of the project is to provide a sort of a train-the-trainer style manual for the program that we do, assuming that it is a successful program. We're feeling really good about it right now, but we'll be making a manual that can be translated to other communities, and that's a kind of an important part of making the program valuable to the Coastal Commission because we are a statewide agency with 1,100 miles of coast. So it's great to do this in the Watsonville area, but it's really much more valuable to us if we can make it something that can be disseminated across the entire coast and obviously available to anybody anywhere. I mentioned that we were working with the Water Quality Protection Program of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, so we put in our project that we would support the development of that and the coordination of that, along with the coordination of the first resource fair that happened at this event. And that has a wider scope because the sanctuary's boundaries are considerably wider, so they go from almost that San Francisco Bay area, the inlet to San Francisco Bay, down to San Luis Obispo County. So we did just do a conference and a resource fair, just to move a little bit to the statistics, a few things I pulled together. Earlier this month, on February 5th, we were really, really pleased with our event. We had 11 speakers on 4 topics, and we had about 150 people coming, and I was really excited to see that we had representation of 75 different entities with those 150 people. And then immediately following, it started around 1, so it's like a half-day affair. And then we followed it with a resource fair reception. So we all, that was one of those things about grants and food and things like that. We all kind of put out-of-pocket resources to buy some food. Sanctuary found a little bit of money, and that really made for a wonderful event. We had, I didn't have a number. I didn't take in an inventory of who came to the resource fair, but of those 150, we estimated in the first hour we had about 100 people in the room. And that was for something that started at 5:30 at night after they'd been in the room for 4 hours. So we were really pleased about that. And then the resource fair itself was, and I didn't get any photographs from the, no, I didn't, yeah. I didn't get any photographs from the sanctuary who had a photographer there, but we had 20 tables out with a variety of organizations, nonprofit, government, water districts, universities, a couple of private consultants and private citizen who provided information on water quality and water conservation to the community that came out. And of those, we will work with about 10, about half of them, who are specifically offering programs in the Watsonville area. So those resource fairs, that was kind of the kickoff one that we did with the conference, but then it will, I will be hosting like 4 more of those at the neighborhood level. So they'll be smaller. There'll be 5 to 10 targeted groups that come out to a Home Depot or garden center parking lot, or the city and the high school do a big Earth Day event. And the California Coastal Commission is the instigator of the Coastal Cleanup Day, which is now spread well beyond California. I think there are 100 countries nationwide, states and countries nationwide globally that do the California Coastal Cleanup Day in September. And so we'll be targeting certain outreach events to certain topics. Earth Day is more of a watershed event for us. Coastal Cleanup Day is more of a trash pickup day. The city of Watsonville does a event they bring out veterinarians who do shots for low-income, well, really for anything. I don't think they actually inventory it, but the target is for low-income residents to do free vaccinations for their pets. So we'll bring out resources that are targeting on pet waste cleanup, as we've already talked about in some of the other presentations today.
Good.
So lastly, we did add this component of working with the high school. So Pajaro Valley High School is a little special, close to our heart project here at the Coastal Commission, because we worked really hard with the city of Watsonville and the school district to allow that high school to be built. And through that, we also conditioned it specifically to have an educational program for the high school students that attended it that really focused on watershed education, wetland value of the sloughs. There's an organization that's been in existence for a long time called the Watsonville Wetlands Watch, and so they were a partner to it all. And they, like I said earlier, they have the Wetlands Education Resource Center on the campus, and the regional occupation, the ROP students move through that. Every student at the high school gets some component of it, but electively the students can be a part of this program, and they get, there are a myriad of programs that they do. They do wetland restoration, they do non-native removal. Then one component is that they do learn a lot about the water quality impacts. And so I have 3 interns that have been working with me since December specifically on the conference and the resource fairs, and then we were able to have some of the other students come at our resource fair and make presentations of their watershed science that they had done, and they brought a watershed model and that they have kind of customized to be Watsonville sloughs. And then the last bit I have is that we are making an effort. These are my 3 lovely Latina interns, and then we made a point of making them have one-on-one, one-on-3 direct interviews during the conference and the resource fair with professionals in their field. And so they got to speak with a preeminent marine biologist who does sea otter, she had a presentation, and then she spoke with the girls directly about, the impacts of urban runoff and urban pollutants when they get to the marine environment, and how the connection between, cat waste in your yard and sea otter health, and runoff pollution from agricultural fields to, we have a very toxic lake in our area, Pinto Lake, and how that feeds the bacteria there that causes this toxicity. So they got to speak with a variety of different people. I predominantly targeted the 3 tracks of our conference, which was urban pollution, agricultural pollution, and then the impacts of those on the marine environment. So they got to have 6 different 20-minute interviews during this conference and resource fair with professionals in the field. And specifically, the picture here is Ross Clark, who used to work at the Coastal Commission for many years and who worked on that project. And so he was able to specifically explain to them how a land use planning agency can work directly to protect a wetland by, really conditioning a project that's developed in the wetland, and then also the development of this curriculum. And I just put up a couple of pictures here that are the Watsonville sloughs. Really, it's a wonderful area. It's just an enormous resource for wetland birds and wildlife of all kinds. And it's a huge agricultural value. And it's a huge educational resource. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Great. All right. Any questions for Tamara? Have your door-to-door, Tamara,
yeah.
Are you going to use the students to actually go into their community?
Yeah, so it's actually not door-to-door. It's sort of
or one door.
One door at a time,
Sure.
sort of making contact one person at a time. The goal is during the resource fairs that we're going to do in the neighborhoods that we would absolutely use, work with students to have them be the sort of front person to actually come in contact with residents and then be emissaries in their neighborhoods. So we were cautious to not, especially this is the first time we've done this program, we're kind of inventing it as we move along, but we didn't want to make a commitment to take students to people's door. So it is, I'm cautious of the phrase door to door.
Sure.
But it is, the idea was that we would change people's behavior sort of one person at a time, one residence at a time.
Great.
Yeah. And we are hoping, this is, like I said, the first time that we've made an effort like this. And so we are hoping that it is successful. And we've already met, between the water quality conference and the resource fair that happened after the conference. In a way, we've kind of already met the numerical goals that we put into the grant, which we were very cautious about putting a large number. So I'm feeling really good that we've already lined up a few businesses, the Orchard Supply Hardware and Home Depot, and then we have these other events that the city does at the Central Park in the city of Watsonville, Ramsey Park, where they do, like I said, the Shot Clinic, Earth Day Fair, Coastal Cleanup Day, and then we have a county fair that happens in the city of Watsonville. So we have all these other opportunities where even if we were, a small number of people in direct contact with them, our numerical count of reaching the public will surely be met. But the goals of trying to change neighborhoods, by working with them directly, as opposed to sort of kind of top down from the north part of the county.
Got it. I see.
So it's a different kind of program than the others,
yeah.
but
it looks like Alma's typing, but I don't. There you go.
There you go.
Can you read that, Tamara?
Yeah. So. So working, it was really, we didn't even fold it into the grant. It's just something that has evolved, is working with the school, working specifically with a highly Hispanic high school, and that it's just sort of a really nice culmination of events, from the Coastal Commission being highly involved in the development of that high school, and then having these populations of students who are so interested in the wetland and protecting the wetland and their environmental curriculum at the school, and then allowing them to be the emissaries back out to their community. And I'm really pleased with these girls. And it's, these 3 girls I'm working with directly. One of the next steps we're going to do is we're going to have them work with the other programs. So there were 3 programs represented in that group of students in the photograph, 3 different programs. The girls working with me, another internship program from the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and then the Watsonville Wetlands Watch students. They have a wetland stewards program. So the more we can kind of expand into this school, the better. I'm really, really excited about it. And you're right, that the comment that, the Hispanic elders love the land, and I think that it is, there's an interesting dynamic between the way that Hispanic farm workers in particular are crushed into communities. Watsonville suffers from I think all agricultural communities in the modern world suffer from. We have a lot of undocumented Hispanic people in our community who do not, who live 7 people in an apartment, and we have populations. When I went through the Watsonville sloughs and the surrounding watersheds to do water quality monitoring in a past position at a different organization, we found numerous camps of farm workers who were living under the bridges. 40 people who had systematically developed a little city under a bridge, and those kinds of dynamics of having people who are living just really crushed on the margin of the normal urban environment and living in it, like with many people in apartments. It's there's a component of taking the message to that population who, without it being like you have to have land, you have to be able to do something. You can simply just put a drip pan under your car, various little small easy things.
And I think one of the things, this is Anne-Marie again, that's really has been great is there are several people out there that are doing, personal histories with people like, that have put the high school students in together with the elder and do their biography, or do snippets of things that also are involving a natural resource. So we'll actually, I'll try and hunt down a few people that are doing them to add to this discussion. What I'd like to do is go around the room and see who has some other things to share. And you can just pop in, introduce yourself, and either ask another question or just tell us what you're doing and what challenges you have. I could call on Amy, if I might. I hear great things from that are going on in your program from Cindy Kapitsky. Put you on the spot.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, this is Amy Samuels, and actually many of the staff at our organization where we've been participating in the webinar as a group. So welcome from all of us,
great.
Hello from all of us. The program that we have here is trying to create pathways for folks from low-income and minority communities that have been affected by combined sewer overflows and the pollution that's caused by them in our local creek. And so we've offered our first green infrastructure job training program for adults in the community. A little background information. Our community, the city of Syracuse, is under an amended consent judgment to reduce combined sewage overflows, and the county chose to, after starting with a total kind of gray infrastructure approach. The county switched gears and uses a combination of green and gray infrastructure. So for a city our size, we are a small city of about 200,000 people. We have an incredible amount of green infrastructure, and the county is still in the process of figuring out the best ways to maintain that green infrastructure. And so over the next couple years, there should be more and more jobs for folks in the maintenance of green infrastructure. And so some of what we did was teach about maintaining green infrastructure, but then also teaching about creating the green infrastructure and just learning what it is, where you can find it, why it's important, and connecting folks to their neighborhoods in an environmental way.
Terrific. Next up, anybody? I know, let's see, who else is there? Huh. Is Andy still on the line? I don't know, from the city of Omaha. I don't know if you've got something going there. Any more questions for folks?
This is Alan Reagans with the National Park Service at the Rivers and Trails program, and I'll throw out something I think we've done a little bit of, but I think there may be more opportunities out there and maybe more emerging if we ever get actually some resources to support this stuff. But it strikes me that the national parks, and it's true of other public land managers, they're running a variety of different environmental education programs as well, including some outreach programs and things like distance learning and remote classrooms and that kind of thing. And we don't particularly do a good job of then linking that to the classroom in Omaha that participates in a program through Glacier National Park. Can they do something in their local community that sort of makes the connection to either stewardship or environmental issues or even outdoor recreation in their own community? And those of you that are working more at the local neighborhood level might want to think about or look around to, are there ways to make those connections? Again, we've done it time to time, but we don't really have a systematic approach to that. I don't think we think about it much as the federal land managers, and frequently there's a pretty good gulf between the two, and maybe we need to link them more.
That's a terrific idea. I think that this is Anne Marie again. I think that one of the things that doesn't always happen is people need sort of an action program in their neighborhood where they get to really understand the environment. But then we really need to be able to connect it to the parks, both state parks and national parks. I mean, with so many people living in urban areas, we have to make sure that that is connected, and also that the students get the opportunities to do something at the state and the national level. I think any other comments or things that people want to share? Donnie, did you have anything else, or Charlene, that came to mind?
Yeah, Emery, I just would springboard off the last thing you just said and share that our evaluation, and we've got just shy of 15 years of longitudinal data now, says that it's really important to provide multiple opportunities throughout a K through 12 career for that community engagement to really take hold. So that's why we push so hard in our work to be within the formal education setting.
Right. Well, everybody, thank you very much for showing up. Anything else? Ryan, if you could put up the last slide there. Here's webinars, one of which will be presented in the next month with Rivers, Trails and Conservation Assistance from the National Park Service. This is really going to be targeted to those of you who might want to use their technical assistance, because there will be an opportunity to apply for their technical assistance. I believe in August. Am I right? Who's on the line that can tell me that? Except that you have to unmute your line here. You can jump in. But we're really excited and pleased to bring you this. Many of the Urban Waters organizations have used that technical assistance, and it's really been terrific. These are the upcoming ones. We'll get those dates out to you as soon as we've set them up. And once you leave the room, you'll be directed to an evaluation, and please fill it out for us. Recommend some other topics if something pops into your mind. There will be a recording of this webinar available, and you will be notified in case you want to follow up with anybody. And I wanted to let you know that if there were people you wanted to contact after this webinar about their program, almost all of you are on the base camp under People and Permission, so that you basically have an entire Urban Waters contact list at your fingertips. And if for some reason you're not on base camp and would like another invitation, please contact either me or Deanna Toledo. And thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.